What's going on, guys? It's your average consumer, and CES is finally done, and I figured why not give you guys a quick rundown of some of the best tech that I got to see while at the show. Now, something really cool that I got to see was actually from Omen and HyperX. So check it out. I actually have it over here, and this is the Omen Transcendence 14. Now, this is a sick laptop, but it's even sicker because it comes bundled with a HyperX Cloud 3 wireless gaming headset. So let me tell you guys all about this. First of all, the fact that I have this here is wild because this is a prototype that's only been shown at CES, but your boy, after he shot his video with this, got his camera stolen. So unfortunately, I lost all my footage, but the team was cool enough to send this out to us so that we can still cover it the way we're supposed to, at least before the actual product comes out. And as the name implies, we're looking at a 14-inch laptop, and a lot of people are loving the 14-inch form factor for portability, but this guy is packing quite a few great specs as well. We're looking at a 2.8K 120 Hz OLED display with 1 millisecond response time, as well as some other specs. Notably, you get up to an RTX 4070 here, as well as up to an Intel Core Ultra 9 185H processor, which is a new chip, but this is one of Intel's new performance processors. And the idea here is to be able to go anywhere, do anything with the Intel Core Ultra processors. But we're going to have a full video coming soon to give you all the details. But what's nice about this setup is that in the box, you get a pair of the HyperX Cloud 3s, which is an awesome deal. And what's super cool here is that this doesn't need a dongle or to be paired. They're pre-paired right out of the box. So no dongle, no Bluetooth. It pairs up with a 2.4 gigahertz connection, and that is actually really exciting. And even though it's compact, you still get a ton of ports here, and you guys can just take a quick look around. It's got a ton of ventilation, of course, to keep it cool. Like I said, shout out to them for still making that happen. And if you want to get ahead of the game, the pre-orders are available on omen.com, and you know I'll have it linked down below. But let's talk about some of the other things I saw. So we checked out a ton of different booths. Of course, you know we had to hit up the big names, Sony being one of them. Now, Sony didn't have anything particularly new. They did have like this really cool electric car, and I think they even showed like a demo of it during the CES press conference where they controlled it with like a DualSense controller. That's wild. But for me, something more realistic was the new PlayStation 5 Slim. Now, we've known the Slim has existed for a while, but they had new colors for the first time. Well, these new colors all seem to be the same texture, so that's a huge win. That's what I was hoping for. But yeah, 3 new colors for the PS5 Slim. Let me know what you guys think of them down below. Now, I spent a ton of time at the LG booth, and they had so many different things, from transparent OLED TVs, which actually looked really cool. They had this electric car, which who would have seen that coming? Looked pretty wild, but very much a concept. Another concept though that actually caught my attention, and I don't know, your boy might be able to see himself using it, was their BonVage. So this thing is basically like a camper, something you tack onto the back of your vehicle. And this thing is awesome. It had like a bed, a built-in fridge, wine rack, a TV. It had a full-blown bathroom in there with a toilet and shower, a sink, nice faucet, microwave. It also had an electric stove on the side with a picnic area so that you can eat. The karaoke next to the wine rack. It even had like a shoe sanitizer. They put a bunch of their LG tech into this one camper, and it's just kind of mind-blowing. Now, listen, I saw comments when I made a video about this, and people were like, yo, what's the point of camping? Listen, maybe you want to be inside while you're outside, okay? And I'm all for that. Like, you know, you come outside to eat, that kind of thing, and it's probably the only way your boy would consider going camping. I'm from Brooklyn. I don't need to be outside like that. With the BonVage though, I definitely consider it. Now, one thing we saw while we were just walking about was in the TCL booth. We actually saw a couple things at the TCL booth, right? I think the first thing that kind of drew us in was a ultra wide monitor. I'm talking about a 57-inch dual 4K mini LED monitor, and it's like having a legit 2 4K displays in front of you. That was pretty sick. And we saw some other cool stuff like their Next Paper devices. So these Next Paper devices, I think they had phones and tablets. Basically the screen, instead of that like glossy screen that we're all typically used to, it's like it had a nice matte screen, so no light was reflecting off of it. It looked really clean. And that's kind of cool. It's a different feel for your devices. Something they showed was it being able to go into like this different mode where you had no color or very, very dim colors. It wasn't very saturated. So maybe if you want to do some like reading or something, it gives you that feel. Like I said, it's kind of like that Kindle vibe, but the screens were nicer. But yeah, these are called like their next paper devices. They won a bunch of awards, so kudos to them. Now, speaking of monitors and displays, we actually saw some cool stuff at Samsung. One of the coolest things we saw was a 3D gaming monitor that didn't require any glasses. So it has these sensors built into the top of the monitor that track your eyes, that basically allows it to output that 3D image no matter how you're positioned. It actually worked really well. I was surprised, and it added like a really interesting dynamic to gameplay. So I'd be interested in seeing what other games look like with that. So the monitor looks dope, but Samsung had a ton of other things. They had this gigantic micro LED TV, huge, looked awesome. Of course, you know, they came out swinging with great looking TVs. They even had a transparent TV, they had a transparent micro LED TV, but they also had some really sick appliances. Appliances sound like they're kind of boring, but they can do some really cool stuff these days, you guys. So I know we did a smart home video way back in the day where we covered some of the cool Samsung appliances that we had in our house. That was awesome, but they've upgraded a lot since then. I'm talking about a washer and dryer combo so that you can just wash your clothes in one unit. After it's done washing, it'll go and dry it as well. But there's also that component of having that screen so you can see all the details. You can fine tune the wash the way you want it to be. But what's also cool here is that you can get these statistics about how much water you consumed, how much detergent you used, all this crazy analytical stuff about your wash. And that screen is also gonna be in other appliances as well. So even with their wall oven combo, you're able to set whatever you need to right from the screen. What's nice is that there is now a built-in camera. So if you go within the SmartThings app, you can see how your food is turning out. Now they went ahead and updated the fridge as well. So they've got their bespoke fridges with the Family Hub or AI Family Hub, which does a lot of cool things. So it does this thing now where as you're putting groceries in, it'll scan the food that you're putting into your fridge and basically allow you to keep count or track of what you have inside of your fridge. But there's this one feature that kind of blew my mind, and it's the ability to take the ingredients that you have in that fridge based on it tallying what you have inside of there and give you recipes. That could take a lot of the guesswork out of coming up with an idea for a meal. I think that's awesome. Maybe I'm getting old.
Yes, you are.
But that's some futuristic stuff. Now, there was this other interesting thing from Samsung called the Ballie, which is basically like a, not virtual assistant, but like a physical assistant that did virtual things and projected a screen to your wall. So you have this little ball of a thing following you around. You can ask it questions. You can tell it to do things like your virtual assistant. That's like from the Jetsons, man. Rosie. Remember when we said that? It's like Rosie. Now, something else I saw while out there was from a company called Withings, and it's called the Beam O. So basically, it's like this 4-in-1 home checkup kind of device where it can check your body temperature. It's also a medical grade ECG, as well as be able to check your blood oxygen levels. Being able to monitor that kind of stuff right from a small little device like that, I think is actually really cool. Now, they also had this really cool scale. I know, scale, right? Now this thing can do a full body scan. One of the more interesting ones to me was detecting like your muscle mass. So if one side is maybe bigger than the other, it can let you know, so you know exactly where you need to train. I think that's cool. As somebody who used to go to the gym, I think that can be pretty dope. And while we're on the topic of health, I actually worked with Abbott, and they're making some amazing stuff over there. So one thing I saw, I'm not gonna try to attempt to remember this, the Avere dual chamber leadless pacemaker system, which is absolutely wild. So if you know anybody with a pacemaker, you know that there's usually like tubes and a device that's implanted into the chest. What Abbott's made is a system that basically gets implanted into your heart, and you've basically got these two devices that replaced that whole system. And that's just gotta be a really big deal in the community of folks who use pacemakers. Now, something I saw that was really cool was from a company called Hyper. So what they did was they created an SSD enclosure that has MagSafe. So basically you can have an SSD inside of the enclosure, attach it to the back of your iPhone, and it connects directly to the iPhone so you can shoot your ProRes video or, you know, have whatever files you want right on top of your phone. I immediately saw how useful this was while I was on the show floor, because I was running out of space like crazy when shooting ProRes video with my phone, and having something that would simply slap onto the back of it would have been amazing. It also had an extra USB-C port, so if you wanted to still charge your iPhone while you were shooting or, you know, doing whatever you were doing, it had that extra port so you can still provide your phone power while using it. They also had a Thunderbolt 5 dock. We're on 5 already with Thunderbolt, which is madness. One thing I was really happy about though was the Thunderbolt port to connect it to whatever device you're connecting it to, computer, is in the back. Usually with these Thunderbolt 4 docks, the port's always in the front. It's really annoying, and that thing has it in the back, which makes it worth it on its own right there. Now, right next to the Hyper booth was Targus. They had something that I gotta get my hands on. So it's actually a mouse that can work for lefties or righties. So it feels like a nice ergonomic mouse, but you can actually pop the top right off, flip it, put it back down, and instantly it's ready to go for the other hand. Now, this is great for someone like me, Ari, my wife. She's a lefty and she's always complaining it's a right-handed person's world. Most of us are right-handed, but she's always struggling with stuff like that. So this is a mouse that we gotta get in the house so that there's one less thing for her to complain about. Now, something I wish I got to see that I didn't was actually the MSI Claw. You guys know me, I'm a huge handheld gamer. I mean, that's how I play my games majority of the time these days. And MSI is getting into the arena, so I wanted to see what that was all about, but they weren't on the show floor, they were somewhere separate. So I didn't get to see that, but I want to. Yeah, I don't know. I want to see it. And while we're on the topic of gaming, we also stopped by the Razer booth and we saw their Project Esther, which is supposed to be the world's first HD haptics gaming seat cushion. And basically, it's supposed to vibrate and help you to feel way more immersed while you're gaming. So if you're getting shot in the back, on the right side, or left side, or your leg or something, you're supposed to be able to feel it based on the haptics provided. They even had this like really cool looking RGB version, and you know, just Razer being Razer. But when I actually tried it on, it was very interesting. I think it would take some getting used to, because you're feeling vibrations in places you just wouldn't expect, like the back of your leg. But this is all coincides with their Sensa platform through the Razer Synapsis app, I believe. I think they've got like the headset that also vibrates as well. So it all kind of uses those haptics and trying to make it feel just super immersive. A massage chair. Could you imagine getting shot up like, oh shoot, that actually feels kind of good. And while we were there, we also checked out their new gaming chair. I think it's the Esker V2. So it's their gaming chair, but this one had some interesting lumbar support. So instead of just like the typical, you know, lumbar support that you have in your gaming chair, this one, the pad could move left or right. So depending on how you're sitting, the angle you're at, it can still give you support even if you're turned a little bit. They even had an esports doctor on site that gave me a prescription based on the way I was sitting. It was pretty wild, and it was actually pretty cool. So now I gotta actually go upstairs and adjust my chair. So a lot of these things that I never would have thought about was cool to get a doctor's insight who knows what it's like to be sitting in a chair for hours and hours on end, like our jobs require. So that was actually kind of dope. But yeah, there were a lot of cool things at CES. Let me know what your favorites were down in the comments.